Yeah, so in this video, I'll tell you one of the primary reasons for why human beings suffer and what we can do about it. Um, Human beings has two needs. Those needs are to know yourself and to be loved. And to know yourself just means to be authentic, basically. As a child, when you get born, you need to know who you are, you need to know what you feel, you need to know your needs, because otherwise you won't survive. So the child cries when it's hungry, or the child cries when it needs comfort. But an even more primary need for the child is to be loved by its caregivers. So, in order to get love, the child will always suppress its own needs, its own authenticity to be loved. Because if the parents doesn't love the kid, it definitely won't survive. But suppressing the hunger or the need to be comfort for a short period of time is not going to be detrimental to the survival of the child. However, it becomes problematic because if we learn to suppress our own authenticity just to be loved, when we grow up and we need to stand on our own two legs and be independent, if we don't know who we are, it's going to cause a lot of problems. So, one of the main problems that human beings experience is that they are afraid of what other people think about them. This happens because they have been taught when they were kids that if they are themselves, they are not the servant of love. This is how 99% treat their children, not under all circumstances, but under some circumstances during the life or the growing up as a kid, the parents will take away their love when the child isn't acting in the way that the parent wanted to act. So the child gets taught that if it is itself, it is not the servant of love. Then, when the child grows up and goes out into the world, it's still looking for that validation, for that love in other people. So, in other authority figures, the boss, friends, anybody basically. Because they have been taught that it needs to please or be in a certain way to get the validation that it needs. And that keeps on happening in adulthood as well. So, this causes a bunch of different problems. A specific problem that can happen from this, just to give you an example, is that burnout, for example. How does burnout happen? Burnout happens because a person doesn't listen to themselves and they chase some external validation or external circumstance to be able to feel good. So you work to get love, to get attention, to get validation, to get some external thing to feel good. It can only happen because you have learned to suppress your own inner need for rest, for relaxation, and so on. So you keep on not listening to the warning signals. I'm tired. Yep, but the primary need is to be validated, to get some external circumstances to finally feel okay. So you suppress the tiredness, right? And that can be a useful thing. Sometimes we definitely need to maybe not listening to being tired if our life depends on it. So that we are able to do that is, of course, a good thing. But in the case of burnout, for example, probably we are actually fine. There isn't anything in actuality that is threatening us. It is just in our minds we have learned to think that if I'm not pleasing other people, if I'm not getting the external validation, then I'm not okay and then I won't survive. But this is a belief rather than some actual threat. Okay. So then I said, a huge problem is that we are afraid of what other people think. This problem is actually rooted in a misinterpretation of reality and a misinterpretation of what actually is going on. And it relates to projecting our safety, our need for love onto others. As a child, this is a survival mechanism that is 100% needed for us to survive. But as an adult, there is no one else there that is going to save us. I mean, of course, we help each other out and so on, but we are also independent and we have the need for our own independence, right? But we still project the idea that other people is going to save us and that we need the love of others. I'm not saying here that relationships is not a good thing and that we shouldn't love each other and so on. But I'm just trying to point to something in experience where it's not possible to love somebody else in the way that we think it is. Because what is it that is actually happening? Let's say you have a relationship with somebody and you think that that person loves you, right? But that's actually just what is happening. You think that that person loves you. If that person loves you, it actually loves you. It doesn't really love you because whatever that person knows and thinks about you is just what that person thinks about you. So the love that that person have for you is just a feeling within them. And similarly, you believe that they love you. That's your belief, and the love that you're actually experiencing is your own. You see, there is no actually any real sort of transference of feelings and emotions that goes across to the other person. If he or she loves you, whatever you know about that is just what you think about what that person feels or doesn't feel. The feeling itself, you don't know. You just see the expression like a smile, some kind action, some loving words, whatever. The feeling that you're experiencing is your own feeling. So when you think that they reject you, when you think that they don't like you and so on, it's just a projection of your own imagination onto what you believe or think that that person thinks about you? You don't know. You don't actually know. They might just be pretending, or they actually love you, and it doesn't matter. Because we can also imagine this, that let's say that this person actually hates you. This person thinks that you're a terrible person. How do they make that judgment, that value? Well, that person, first and foremost, the same goes for that person, right? That what they think about you is just what they think about you. They went through circumstances of their own growing up that meant certain things to them, so then they interpret you through that lens. And maybe you are a good, loving person, but they only see a small aspect of something that you did, and they misinterpreted that as you being an evil, terrible person. Then they project that onto you and take that to be the whole you, and so they hate you. But they are not actually hating you, because the hate that they're experiencing is their own. They don't hate you, they just project that onto you because they can't take responsibility for their own feelings and emotions, so they want you to feel as bad as they do. That is what's actually going on. And because you, your whole life, have been searching for external validation, because you learned as a kid that if I'm not being within the boundaries for what is acceptable for my parents or caregivers to love, then I'm not okay. But that isn't true, because you just happen to be in the way that you are. And the self rejection is a learned self rejection. And who we are, it's completely okay to be like that. There is nothing wrong with you. The problem isn't that you are the way that you are. The problem is that you think or believe that that isn't okay. And that is where the pain comes from. The pain doesn't come from you being in the way that you are. The pain comes from you rejecting the fact that you are that way. And it's based on a misinterpretation that others can love or hate you, and that you need them to be in a certain way. You need them to act and think in a certain way for you to feel okay. But that isn't the truth. We can imagine that everyone hates you. They think you're terrible. But you are completely fine. You're completely happy. And the same goes with anything, basically. We think that what we hope for in the future is going to give us some long lasting satisfaction. Oh, if I only had that job, if only my relationship was better, if only I had that house or that car or that amount of money, then I would be happy. Well, if you knew for a fact that you would be 100% miserable if you got everything that you dreamt of, then of course you wouldn't want it. So it's not that you want the thing that you think that you want what you think that is going to give you, in the sense that how it's going to make you feel. If you lost your job and your company went bankrupt and you had to sell the house and your wife left you, If you knew for a fact that all those bad things happened and you still would be completely satisfied, completely happy, then of course it wouldn't be a problem anymore. So the problem isn't what we think. The problem is the underlying feeling or emotion that we are rejecting and that we don't want to feel. And that feeling is not somebody else's feeling. That feeling is our own feeling. Okay, so what is the solution to this then? The solution is to do something that seems completely preposterous to the mind. Because the mind uses two main coping mechanisms for this problem. And those two coping mechanisms is to either project, so we feel bad, and then we blame somebody else for that feeling. We say that it's your fault, you're an idiot, I hate you. Well, as we just saw, that other person is just you. It's just your idea about that person. So you create that as an image separate from yourself, and then you project the pain onto that one so that you can get distracted from the discomfort that you are feeling. Right? There is some quote about hatred is like drinking poison and hoping that the other person is going to die. That's exactly what you're doing. It's a projection. The other person, it doesn't exist in that way. It's just your idea about that person. Separate that person from that's not me, and that feeling is because of that person. Well, that idea about that person is your imagination, so it's obviously you, and that feeling is also obviously you. So it was you all along, right? Very uncomfortable. Not a very good coping mechanism. Somewhat works in the moment, but very, very uncomfortable. The other coping mechanism that we use is to suppress or distract ourselves. So we feel bad, we get angry, we get frustrated, we get sad, whatever. We don't want to feel that. So we pretend as if, no, I'm not feeling like that. We use a lot of psychic energy to push that down so that we don't have to feel it. What we don't realize about that is it takes a lot of psychic energy to do that, and it's very uncomfortable. We tense up, we get stiff, we sort of are on a watch all the time, like let's like be very careful so that we don't trigger that initial discomfort. We distract ourselves, like we take up the phone as soon as we feel slightest little discomfort. We pick up the phone and we distract ourselves, we start scrolling. Or that's how addiction works as well, like the slightest little discomfort and we light a cigarette, or we go on a hunt for a drug, or we drink alcohol. That's the same thing. Not very comfortable either. Causes a tremendous amount of problem to avoid and suppress the feeling. Okay, so this third way that I'm talking about, this is a secret hidden in plain sight. The third way is to actually go into the feeling and give the feeling our attention. It's dead simple. It's so simple that it almost sounds stupid. Like, why would I want to feel the feeling that I'm trying to get out of? Well, the reason is that it's not as uncomfortable as you think. The discomfort doesn't come from the feeling itself, but it rather comes from the resistance towards the feeling. That's the main pain. And then we turn our attention to the feeling, because that is what it needs. It just needs to be seen and heard and recognized for its truth, for its wisdom. The feeling doesn't have to justify itself. It's just a reaction to external circumstances because you went through things in your life as a kid and you learned those habit patterns of the mind as a way to protect you. But now you're an adult, you see that there is actually no uh, real danger here. It's just an implicit memory, an emotional memory from a time when you were a kid and you were um, more unprotected against the world. You were dependent on other people. You were weaker, so you more things felt like a threat to you, and so on. So the implicit memory is still there. It feels as if you're going to die. It feels as if the threat is real. But it's just like an ancient relic from the past that is causing you to feel as if, holy shit, this is going to hell. But with the adult eyes and giving that feeling your attention, you'll see that, this is an inappropriate response to a situation that isn't actually dangerous. And luckily for you, the mind is incredible and so fantastic. It's always going to take the path of least resistance. It just needs to recognize what it is, which is namely an overreaction to something that isn't right now in any danger. And just by giving it your attention, it goes away on its own, naturally. And this is where real freedom comes from. Real freedom is not dependent on circumstances. Real freedom is available in any moment. We just need to give it our attention. And when we give it our attention, we see what it actually is. We see that it's already free. We see that it's completely unbound. And it was just that we believed that we had to do something to get out of it. We believed that it wasn't okay to be who we were. We believed that it was something wrong with us. And that belief was what caused the problem. Not that we were the way that we were, because what we are is completely already free, unbound, limitless, whatever you want to call it. And so the freedom that you are looking for, that you think that those things in the future is going to give you, it is actually what's already the case. Because that future, it doesn't exist. It's just a figment of your imagination. And that imagination, that image, is trying to distract you from the uncomfortable feeling that is underneath, that you're experiencing right now in this moment. Where you think you're not enough, where you think you're unsafe, where you think you need some external circumstance to be in another way for you to be okay. But if you just look at this moment, you're completely safe. You're completely whole. The felt sense of lack is just a felt sense. There's not actually anything missing. And when you recognize that, you see that, yes, this was already the case. I just believed something other to be the case, but that wasn't true. And so in rough patches, this is the path to liberation. It's not something esoteric. It's not something spiritual. It's not something that is dependent on any religion or you holding any other belief or you having to be better or you having to change in any way. No, not at all. It's much more intimate and much more simple and direct than that. So I hope that you can explore this for yourself and recognize who you actually are. Because it's not knowing who you are that makes you think that you need to be something else. The need to be special can only come from not knowing who you are, or not, I mean, you clearly know who you are, but not recognizing the truth of your own nature. So, yeah, just explore and let me know how it goes.